Reach for the speed, reach for the whistle, go where the rail may run. Reach for the word, reach for the story, follow the rainbow sun. To the shining time station, where dreams can come true, waiting there for you.
The steam locomotive. One of the most recognized forms of an era long gone. They changed the way we view rail travel. They helped us boost our economy. Many railroads took great pride in their engines, but none was like the Pennsylvania Railroad and their K4 Pacifics. The Pennsylvania Railroad took great pride in their 425 K4 462 locomotives. But pride couldn't stop progress in modernization, so when dieselization came about, all but two were scrapped. Number 3750 and her idolized sister, number 1361. In the early 1900s, the Pennsylvania Railroad was in heavy competition with the New York Central. To compete using their passenger service, the Pennsylvania looked for a new type of locomotive. In 1907, the PRR collaborated with ALCO, or the American Locomotive Company, to build an experimental K-28 class Pacific. This engine featured 80-inch drivers and a tractive effort of nearly 33,000 pounds. The PRR's very first K4S Pacifics were constructed between 1910 and 1911, as they proved to be extremely successful. While most of the competitor railroads 462 were retired by the 1930s, the K4 would soldier on until all steam was retired from the Pennsy in the late 1950s. In 1918, the Pennsylvania Railroad's Altoona Works would receive orders to build another batch of 111 K4 Pacifics, one of them being serial number 3475, better known as number 1361. She and her 425 K4 sisters fell right at home and worked like champions on mail and passenger service. In the 1950s, the Pennsylvania Railroad started to retire their K4 Pacifics in favor of diesel electrics. Out of the 425 built, only two were preserved, 3750 and 1361.
After being donated to Altoona, 1361 sat on top of the horseshoe curve until 1985, when the Altoona Railroaders Memorial Museum had a bright little idea to restore one of the surviving PRR locomotives. Being based near the museum, the 1361 was the ideal candidate, but 30-plus years of outside storage took a toll on the engine. When the museum took over the curve, their first order of business was to move the locomotive to the shops where she was built over half a century prior. In 1985, she left the curve and restoration took place. Over the course of 2 years, anticipation filled both the small band of members and the rail fans, with the awaited return of the Queen getting closer and closer to riding her home rails again.
In early 1987, after 2 long, back-breaking years of restoration, the 1361 was ready to move under her own power. In almost 31 years. On April 9, 1987, the 1361 was ready to move. And soon had a blast from her whistle, calling for a cheer from the Altoona Railroad Memorial members. The month of April saw trial runs being made to make sure the engine was in tip-top shape before she could start official excursions. Soon after that, she made several private trips for Conrail, but it was in October 1987 when the 1361 ran her first official public excursion. The trip went with little to no issue, and soon she rose to immediate stardom. She became an icon of Pennsylvania railroading, and everyone at ARMF thought this would last forever. But little did they know that the clock was ticking. During December 1987, the 1361 and the rest of her class were dubbed the State Steam Locomotive. The engine ran highly successful trips on Conrail track, and however, 1988 was not kind for the 1361. While on a ferry move, the locomotive suffered a catastrophic main bearing and driving axle failure, which took her out of service for a complete rebuild. She sat until 1996, when restoration finally kicked off. The engine was sent off to Steamtown in Scranton in hopes of a restoration, but sadly in 2010, funding ran out and the project was cancelled. In 2013, she was sent back to her home where they hoped to complete the rebuild. However, it was cancelled again. Fortune wasn't on the K4 side, and all hope seemed lost for the Spirit of Altoona.
In 2015, restoration commenced on the K4 again. A group of 4 dedicated workers led by preservationist Bennett Levin. In 2018, he announced that slow but progress was happening on the Pennsylvania State Locomotive. Sponsoring the project as well was Wick former CEO of Norfolk Southern. The restoration is using private funding, so it will be a while, but hopefully when in the next several years we'll see the Juniata jewel return to her state.
edge of